All right, perfect. So we're back with another episode of Biz Mindz. On this episode, we have Tracy Duhaney. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're doing right now business management consulting, and you're also an author of Discovering Your Inner CEO.
Yes.
Very exciting, right? Is this your first book?
It is.
Yeah?
It is.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you made your way into business. Have you always been involved in business, or just tell us early on kind of what your career looked like?
Sure. So I am a business management consultant. I focus on strategic planning, leadership development, and culture within an organization. And I started in business when I was in college. My bachelor's is in business economics. I was always fascinated with business and the economic side of it and what makes businesses tick. And then I gravitated into my master's and I did organizational psychology. So I merged the business aspect of the facts and the numbers with the emotional psychology aspect of humans in business and how we make that tick.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the difference between somebody that's in business versus somebody that's not?
Well, we're always in business as long as you're in as long as you try to make money, you're in business, right? It's just how you approach business, whether you're working in your business or on your business or working in a business or on a business. And the difference comes back to having a learning mindset and always growing and learning from others and their experiences and what successes and failures they've had before you. So you can implement that and hopefully not make the same mistake. That's the biggest difference, I would say.
Between a business owner versus somebody that's not a business owner?
Between someone who's working in a business versus on a business. Because being a worker in a business, it's almost robotic, right? You're doing what you're told, you're doing what the business needs. But when you're working on your business or on a business, it could be working for someone, but you're working on it. You are taking approaches from different people and you are learning from history and learning from people before you and making it your own and growing on that.
You said, so you studied business economics. Was that here in Florida?
No, it was in Worcester, Ohio.
In Ohio?
Yes, and I will never go back.
What was your first job after
college?
Yeah, after college.
My first job after college was actually a front desk administrative assistant. And I moved here immediately after college, and it was on the uptick of the 2008 through 2011 recession. So things were just starting to get better. And I just wanted a job. You know, I had been interning at a hotel in Naples and loved it, but it wasn't long term. And I did get a position as an administrative assistant for a local company. And I was there not even a year before I ended up back in hotels and worked in a hotel locally for 6 years and just loved learning every bit of that, the hospitality side of it and bringing people into it and what made it work, what areas we could have improved on, you know, things like that. And it was that groundwork that paved the way for my passion to merge people and business.
What were you doing in hotels?
In hotels, I was doing sales and catering.
Sales and catering.
So if they had anything to do with an event, I was your girl. From planning the sales aspect to execution. And then afterwards, I was the person. I would network to get the business. I would make sure the event went off without a hitch. And then afterwards, make sure you came back. I was that person.
Yeah. From there, did you transition into owning your own business?
Yes and no. So from there, or whilst I was in the hotels, I was working on my business on the side. And fun fact, I had the dream to start my business when I was on a trip in Kenya. And that's how the name of my business came about, the Amboseli Group. I was in Amboseli, Kenya. And I started working my business then and organically kept growing until I finally went out full-time on my business last year, which has been its own journey ever since.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you.
And what made you feel like it was the right time or just the right decisions to make that leap from, you know, working for somebody
to working on your own?
Yeah.
Honestly, it was a lot of prayer. I'll be very honest. And it took a lot of internal self-awareness and preparation and really a lot of prayer to say this is the time to make this leap, because I couldn't have done this by myself.
Why go into business?
Well, can I say I hated where I was?
Yeah, you can say whatever. It's fine.
It wasn't the hotels, but no, I was working for a company that I recognized I was giving my all, and I wasn't getting all back. And that seemed to be very unbalanced, and it wasn't sustainable. It was really requiring 70 hours a week and very little extra return. And I got sick while I was working for that company with COVID, and I ended up in the hospital, and I recognized this job is going to kill me, and I'm not going to let this job kill me. I'm going to make a decision for myself, because how I defined success at that moment started to shift after I became sick. It was no longer a financial definition, but more of a mental peace definition of success. And I wasn't going to attain that by working for that company.
Yeah. And don't you think those two go hand in hand?
Which two?
Financial success with peace, mental peace?
In theory, it would be the perfect marriage. But in business, sometimes we have to choose which one we're going to focus on at a certain point, because as you're building a business, you're hustling. You know, you're really putting yourself out there. You're really going for it. Until you get it to a certain level in your business, that's when you can start saying, let me take a step back. The business is operating for itself. It's self-sufficient. Let me take a step back. And I realized that mental peace can't wait. So now you're prioritizing one over the other at any point in time. I'm not at a point yet where it's a perfect marriage, but I recognize that that's my goal.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. How important do you think psychology becomes when you start owning businesses?
It depends on the type of psychology, because you have the organizational psychology, which as a leader, understanding how your employees operate, why they make the decisions that they do, why you have some of the frustrations that you have, where the opportunities for improvement are, versus psychology that is of the person individually. Both are important, but it really starts with that self-awareness aspect of who I am as a person. And if each of us could take that on, who I am, what do I bring to the table, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and how do I blend that with the people I'm working with so that we create a good team, a balanced team, that's the important part that should be focused on. Unfortunately, there's so many things being thrown at us in business every day that it's hard to take that time to focus on the internal work that needs to be done.
Understanding people in business, it's very important, right? I think that's the only way to actually grow businesses when you have a lot of people working for you and making sure that you're providing for them. But at the same time, like you said, you have to see where you're at and take care of yourself as well, because you're the one that's basically, driving the car. So, have you had any experiences where, I know this happens all the time in business because you're busy, but that you felt like you didn't have control of what you were doing?
Define control.
Control in the sense of maybe not being able to, because I always say that sometimes you feel in control, but that's when you have no control.
Okay.
So it's a little, tricky.
Okay.
Because when in business, when I felt like I had everything in control and in systems and everything perfectly, that's when things can actually
start falling apart.
Yeah.
Get out of control.
Yeah. So it's a little tricky to explain, but you know what I mean.
I'll say that as a leader, whether you own your business or you are a leader of a department or a senior level leader, in control is a very loose statement because you're working with people, right? It's hard to control people. You're not meant to control people. What you're meant to do is create a culture in which everyone in the organization understands the goals and the mission of the organization and is working in sync with each other to achieve that. The problem is culture tends to be defined as the mission statement on the wall, the values statement that we've embedded in our employee handbook, but then it gets forgotten. It's not rooted in everyday practices, how we approach our employees, how we interact with them, how we have communication and feedback, how we really help them grow. It really just becomes, the expectation is that it becomes more self-sufficient when it can't be. It is an active process that every day you should be working at it. That's how culture continuously improves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With,
so you're thinking there.
Yeah. It's just because there's so many layers to business, right, in general. And how money-driven are you?
Money-driven. Obviously, money is needed to operate, but also to sustain. But my goal in life is not to be a millionaire. And I'll tell you why. Because there's certain... Anybody remember the song More Money, More Problems? Mm-hmm. Right? I was actually listening to that over the weekend. But it's one of those things where more money, I fear, will change certain aspects of what I'm doing. And my goal is to help other people achieve their best. That's not fueled by money. So yes, you pay for services. Yes, you hire a consultant, but it's the services that I'm delivering upon. That's my goal. Financial success or financial freedom is not millionaire or billionaire. It's okay, I can live freely, but I'm also not going to live extravagantly. Mm-hmm. Because I don't find that's not going to make me happy. You know, when you ever read the stories of celebrities or business owners who have reached a certain level of financial freedom, they'll tell you, another car does not make me happy. A bigger house does not make me happy. But the flexibility that money provides, great. But it's not a dollar amount that motivates me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, the money topic, because in business, I feel if you're not making money, you don't have a business, right? And in business, in every stage of business, the dollar amount is different, right? So you typically, like a service provider will start providing the service, then they get somebody to help them. That's because they can make that transition, right? Usually with the amount of demand that's coming in, and that's money. And then it's so tricky because I understand the giving, the why somebody is doing what they're doing, right? The why, like I'm providing the service and I genuinely love the results it provides to somebody, but that financial thing is always there, right? Yeah. Like that, it has to be, because if it weren't, then just do it for free,
right? Until we go back to a barter society.
And then you can't.
Exactly.
And then you're like, you might not love it anymore if it's for free.
Well, that's the thing. You know, again, if you have financial freedom to be able to cover your bills, you may want to give some more of it for free because you're not worried about it, your own financial freedom, right? Yeah. Your needs, according to Maslow, they're covered, right? So once you have attained that, then you can look at, okay, how much more can I do? How much more can I accomplish? But accomplishing may not be financial.
Yeah.
How many more people can I help? How many, if I'm an attorney, how many more pro bono cases can I do? What does that look like? How much more volunteer time can I now allocate because I'm not allocating all my time to business? What does that look like?
Right. What does it look like for you, your business 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I plan to be in Africa and living in Kenya. Oh. And when
Are you from Africa?
I am not. I'm from Jamaica. Oh. But I've spent significant time in various African countries so far. And one of my goals, one of my personal life pillars is to work with sanctuaries for wildlife animals and protect them from extinction. So 5 years from now, I see myself being in Kenya. One of my favorite sanctuaries is in Kenya. And it's called the Sheldrick Trust for elephants, Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. And 5 years from now, my hope is that I'm working with them to help with protecting the species.
How do you help? for them, like not to go an extinction? Like, what do you do?
Well, it's advocacy, first of all. It's also working with especially African governments to help promote the removal of trophy hunting, help to create the harsher impacts of ivory trade, right? Killing of rhinos and elephants for their tusks. It helps with the advocacy to be able to help people understand why wild animals belong in the wild, right?
Yeah.
Not to be in zoos, which, don't get me wrong, I get a lot of flack for this because I don't believe in zoos, even though zoos will have a component of being for educational purposes, but I don't believe that an animal is meant to be in a cage. I wouldn't want to be in a cage, right? So I saw my first bit of wildlife at a zoo, so I can't fully fault it. I fell in love with them at a zoo, but now that I've gotten older, they're meant to be in the wild. And when you travel to their environment and see them in the wild and you are now the one in the cage, it's a different perspective. And humans don't like being the inferior. But when you put yourself in that situation where you are inferior to these animals, it changes your world.
Is that a dream that you have to make that happen?
Yes.
What's stopping you to do that now?
Honestly, that's a question I ask myself every day. I do work with these sanctuaries now where I do provide fundraising over here, but I also do financially support as much as I can. I have a lot of travel back and forth, and I'm growing my experience with the different countries. I did Morocco last year, and between this year and next year, I'm looking at Uganda because I want to go see the gorillas. Because if I go and I fall in love with the gorilla, maybe it's Uganda. I tell people, it's like, when I go to Uganda, that gorilla is going to hug me and you're not allowed to touch them. So I'm saying he's going to hug me. But, what's stopping me right now, with all my prayer, I don't think that God is telling me it's right now. But I do feel like he has told me that it is part of the plan.
Where's your business in 5 years?
Where's my business in 5 years? Self-sustaining, where I would have other consultants on the consultant side. It would have other consultants working in the business to be able to keep the clients stateside. But also for me, taking myself international, if I'm in Kenya, working with businesses over there, but also really for the nonprofits that help with these animals, I find myself being more of an advocate for them.
Got
and it can be on a consultant basis, but it's going to be focused on them in my mind in 5 years.
What does your business right now, what consulting is it? Do you have an ideal client, or is it just any business owner that needs, why does a business owner go for your services?
Okay, so I offer 3 pillars for my business. I have strategic planning, but it's not the way people tend to think. It's not a 30-pager that sits on the shelf that never gets looked at, kind of like the business plan that was created and just doesn't get looked at again. No, it's if you are a business owner or a leader in your organization and you have certain goals that you want to take the business, the department, etc., I work with you to really pick apart those goals. And let's find out what the root of those goals are and how we can create the right framework and roadmap for that. Because usually I get people tell me, I want to grow my business. Great. What does grow mean? I want $5 million in the next year. Why 5 million? Why not 10? Well, I'm at 3 now, so 5 sounded good.
Yeah.
Right? Like we
Starting
kinda,
at 1.
right? We kind of just start throwing.
96% of businesses, small businesses in this country, never make it to $1 million in annual revenue.
But that's the thing. When someone approaches you and say, I want to grow is such a relative term. And when you start asking those questions, that's when I usually get back, I don't know why I chose that number, or I don't know if I can get to 10. Well, how do you know you can get to 5? Well, I think so. I'm at 3. That's what I do. I pick apart the goals and say, let's get to the root of what it is that you really want. Let's create the framework and the roadmap to get there, right? And that's not just for expansion, but it could be internally as well. I want to add on to the department. I want to change the process for a certain flow. Okay, let's pick that apart, right? Because we tend to say goals without actually digesting what the goals mean. And then we don't really communicate with the whole team as to what the goals are. We just expect them to know it and then run with it. The second pillar is leadership development. I work with leaders on various levels as to, okay, you're working with multi-generations in your workforce. How do we approach that? Especially for those who are thrown into the role of leader. They don't know what that means. And sometimes we promote people to manager and expect them to lead. Two different things, right? So I work with leaders to not only know how to work with their generations, but also how to communicate. Because that's a big thing that we think we communicate well, but we really don't. And then the third part is culture. I always ask business leaders, when was the last time you had a culture audit performed for your organization? The response is, a what? A culture audit. When was the last time someone neutral came in and really spoke with your employees, did the survey, analyzed the data, and really see where you are in your business? What is the feedback that your employees are telling you that you may not have listened to up until this point, but someone's going to come in to help you listen to it so that you truly can be one of the best places to work. So those are the 3 pillars. My clientele, I'm not limited by industry because the foundations of business are the same, but I do limit myself to small to medium-sized businesses with an annual revenue of less than 10 million.
Less than 10 million. Anything minimum wise?
No.
No minimum. So they could be at 0.
They could be at 0. But if you are starting a business, in full transparency, I would suggest looking at SCORE because that's free help. I used to be a SCORE volunteer, SCORE mentor. That's free help. Or the SBDC because you have services or resources available that I'm not going to come in and say, hey, you don't have any money yet, but still pay me.
Yeah.
That's not ethical. So I would more advise you to go to those resources. And now once you've exhausted those and you need further help, I'm happy to work with you.
Yeah. How are you getting your name out there right now?
Honestly, the focus as of this conversation has really been on the book.
Okay.
And the book has created doorways to be opened to get me into the conversation in different rooms. And the book in itself, Discovering Your Inner CEO, is a woman's guided journal. And I focus on women in business and women in leadership because it is an often taboo topic to talk about because women fall into certain segments in society and we need to get them out of it. Like you ladies can attest to this. We have a lot to bring to the table and we need our voices to be heard. So when I focus on that from a training and development perspective, that brings me into the organization to look at the other pillars that are necessary.
Yeah, so the book is like
it's a great tool.
Great tool.
How long did it take you to write your book?
9 months.
Oh, wow.
But the reason why it was only 9 months is because as a guided journal, it's filled with activities meant for women to be able to really tap into that self-awareness, reflect, do the self-discovery to identify what are my goals in every pillar of my life, not just professionally, personally, spiritually, financially, wellness. There are 8 sections of life, right? And we tend not to focus on the less discussed areas, but let's tap into all of that to really find out as a person, what are my overall goals? So the training and development that has come up with the book has been great because then now we can start tapping into, okay, what does the business, each respective person's business look like and how can we help them as they're really creating the next generation of leaders?
Right.
When you created your company, how many people do you have on the team or is it just...
It's just me and I outsource as necessary.
You outsource. Okay. And have you had, since you started business, have you had a business where you have like multiple employees and
multiple departments?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I've worked with businesses so far that also have had multiple locations, not just in Naples, and it's traveling to the different locations. It's great when you have an organization that the entire leadership team is on board because you can have one person say, we need this, but the rest say no. And then you already have roadblocks placed in front of you before you've even started, right? So when I meet with the leadership team and we create the roadmap together as to what this looks like, as long as I have all buy-in, because once you have all buy-in, it starts from the top and it can cascade down after that.
And you're selling right now B2B mainly, right? Because how's it working with business owners?
In full transparency, the biggest roadblock I've had when it comes to the consulting side, especially leadership development and culture, is pushback as to business leaders almost putting up their own roadblock or their own boundary saying, I don't want you to see the skeleton in the closet. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense. So I've had this conversation multiple times where you can know people who are decision makers, but once you start talking about the sensitive topic about what's the culture in your organization, is it as great as you say it is? When you start pulling back the curtain, it can be a little scary for some leaders who aren't humble enough to recognize and say, I'm ready to know the truth. Mm-hmm. So that's been a hiccup because people say they want to know until it comes time to actually do the work, right? Yeah. And then it's, okay, maybe not right now. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not doing yourself you're doing yourself a disservice because if you need help now, you're going to need more help, 2 months from now or a year from now. Yeah. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest roadblock I've had.
Are you more cautious as to who you work with now as opposed to when you first started the business?
Yes, my intake form and my intake process has evolved. I do a session first with the decision makers to make sure, hey, not only is everyone on board, but from a personality standpoint, we all can work together. Because it's one thing to say, oh, here's my next client, but it's a headache the entire time. And then midway, you don't want to work with them. And then the results are subpar. Fingers are going to get pointed at me. Let's just save ourselves the headache, right? Mm-hmm. So we do intake sessions, and it really is a collaborative conversation as to what are your expectations, but here are mine. Yeah. Because I have expectations too. And I've learned to be very clear upfront and direct as to this is collaborative work. It's not I'm working for you, I'm working with you because we are sharing the goal. And it's funny you say that because I just had this conversation before this. And it was with someone who said, I applaud you for speaking up when the person wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And something so basic, I'm like, of course I'm going to speak up. You're not holding up your end of the bargain. But it was a reminder that not everyone speaks up, right? Yeah. And not everyone is open and honest about, hey, we're both coming to the table. It's not just one person at the table. Mm-hmm. So that has been my biggest lesson with being intentional with the clients I work with. Mm-hmm.
How many clients do you have on average?
On average, 5 a month.
Yeah. How long do you typically work with clients?
It depends on what the program is. If we're focusing on leadership development, I'm looking at 6 months to a year as part of the program, because what you don't want is to start and say, a month from now, I want to be changed. Whoa. That is lofty goals, and I am not that kind of change maker. But it is consecutive work, right? Continuous work and intentional work. So 6 to 12 months for the leadership development side. For the culture, depending on the size of the business, an audit could take 3 months. It could take 6 months if there are multiple locations, then to analyze the data after that. For the strategic planning side, it depends what the goals start off to be, right? If you just tell me, hey, I'm thinking about opening a new location in Miami. Okay, well, have you done a pro forma? Well, what's a pro forma? That could take a couple of months, right? It depends on what we're working on and the scale on which we're working on it. Mm-hmm.
Do you have a location, or you do all this virtual?
That's a lovely question. I will come to you because virtual is my friend and my foe at the same time, depending on what we're working on. If we're talking about leadership development and trainings and workshops, I hate virtual because there's so much lost in that space and it's not as impactful. And if anyone has seen any of my workshops, I'm loud. And you just can't get that loud online, especially when people start muting you or turning down your volume. But if companies are in a different state and we're working on, I mentioned pro forma earlier, if we're working on a pro forma together and I can do a lot of the research on my own and then we just debrief virtually, then I'll do it virtually. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You were going to say something, right?
Yeah, I forgot.
But I tell people I have passport, we'll travel. So wherever you need me.
Yeah.
How do you define not success? Well, how do you define business in one word?
Choice.
Choice? Mm-hmm. Why?
Because business means, from the consumer perspective, they have a choice as to who they're going to buy from, take their service from. They have a choice in the matter. An employee has a choice as to where they want to work, and the business has a choice in which it does what it's doing, right? Each component has a choice. And in order to be successful in business, I feel like it's being intentional as to what your choice is as a business owner, but also what your services or offerings are to the consumer, and being fair as to why they should choose you.
That's a great word. If you were to lose it all today, what would be your next step?
If I was to lose it all financially today?
What would be the first thing that you do?
Get on my knees and pray.
What would be the second thing you do?
Still pray.
She's a prayer.
I am. I've learned that I can have all of these goals, and it means nothing if that's not what I'm intended to do. Right? So if I lost it all today, it would be a lot of prayer, but then it would be, okay, I built it before. What are we building next? Right? Because as a business owner, one of the key things is resiliency, and you have to be resilient if you're going to be doing any kind of business, because the ebbs and flows of business, whether you're an employee or a business owner, they're natural, they come. So you can't respond to each thing with an emotional reaction, but you have to be resilient to be able to say, all right, we're going to pivot.
Yeah.
Have you always been very spiritual?
Yes, but more so now that I have my own business. And this is one thing that I tell people: if you think that you have a good relationship with God, start a business. Because when you're working for someone and getting a paycheck, you budget, you know what you can spend, you're somewhat in control, to go back to your point of control. But when you're a business owner and you have zero control, that is absolute surrender to God. And I'm learning that. And it's one of the biggest blessings being in business has blessed me with, is that recognition that I was not having a good relationship with God before this. Now it is complete submission.
Well, I love that. Yeah, it's true.
What made you have a relationship with God?
I was raised Catholic, and if my mother's listening, she would love to hear that. But I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic schools up until college. I chose to not go to Catholic churches anymore, just because I tell my mother I don't feel fulfilled going there. So now I go to First Naples. That's my church. And
is that a Catholic church?
It used to be First Baptist.
Okay.
But I'm also learning that Baptists and Catholics aren't really that different. But growing up, you were taught Catholic is the only way to go.
Yeah.
But Jesus is first. But so to answer your question, was I always spiritual? Yes. This level of spiritual? No. And again, this has come from owning your own business.
Yeah. Can you give me, or can you give us one story in business that it was hard for you to keep going, or was the path always good and easy?
No. What is easy in business? I will tell you, if I'm hearing you correctly, one story that ties into the spirituality side. Is that what you're asking?
I mean, yeah. Any struggle in business.
Okay.
Yep.
So when I left my last corporate position, I was doing very well. I was a district manager. I was making good money, but I was burnt out. I was on a level that every time the business phone rang, I jumped. I was having PTSD. And I remember vividly when I said, Lord, this is not something that I want for my life, because I don't even have kids yet or a family, and I'm already this burnt out. And I remember vividly, it was in October and it was a Monday night, and I was on my knees praying, and I just started sobbing. Saying, this is not meant for me. And I had the idea to go out on my own, but chickened out every single time that I was saying, okay, this is it. So being on my knees sobbing and saying, I just want some peace. And if it's meant to be that I go out on my own, you will fill me with peace. After crying my eyes out, the weight that I was feeling lifted. And I said, okay, all right, that's a sign that this is not going to be easy, but this is what you intended for me to do. So I'm going to follow. And I remind myself of that story every single time that it does get hard or it does get confusing. And I question, was this the right thing to do? And it comes back to on your knees in prayer and Lord, I'll follow.
How was your childhood?
That's a loaded question. Can you be more specific?
In general.
Still a loaded question. No, my childhood. So I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I was there until I finished high school. I left at 16, and I am an only child from my mother, not from my father, and I mostly remember great times. And now, in hindsight, I was always that organizer of the events, cousins coming over, parties happening, and parties as a 14-year-old are a little different than as an adult. But I was always that person saying, we should do this, we should get together. And I didn't want anyone to feel left out. That was my whole thing growing up. No one should feel left out. Now I realize it's because that's part of my personality, no man left behind. And growing up, I didn't realize what it all meant. But now I'm starting to see inklings of where God was intending me to go. And my mother tells me when I was younger, I wanted to be a teacher. In my 20s, I said, absolutely not. I do not have the patience to this. But I also recognize now you can define teacher differently, not the stereotypical classroom, etc. But when I'm doing workshops and facilitating, I am teaching.
You're a teacher there.
Right? So it's changing perspectives. And how many times have you heard who you are in your childhood is already laying groundwork for who you're going to become? It's so true. We just don't think of it the way it's becoming that, right? We think it's more linear, and it's not meant to be. And when you really do a lot of reflection, you recognize, wow, okay, I already knew some of this very early on. I just didn't realize it.
Do you think everything you teach is for everybody?
No. But I do think that the concept is for everyone, but the delivery will not be for everyone, and especially in group settings. So one of my favorite passionate topics is confidence and leadership. And confidence is not 100% of the time, and every day you won't be confident, but by the end of the day, you will be confident. And I can have a workshop facilitation where, like I said, I'm loud. It may not resonate with some people, but a one-on-one session, it resonates with them. So it's not necessarily the content, it's the delivery that needs to change and apply based on the person.
In your opinion, why do you think the school system thinks we all have to be taught the same way?
So not having a child in the school system, nor having gone to school in this school system, I can't speak a lot about this school system. But when I was growing up, I had nuns as teachers and I had nuns as principals. So it was more of being strict and following the rules and making sure that you conformed. And I was mostly in trouble and I didn't like conforming. So when it comes to why I think the school system believes we should be universal, I don't know, because that's how it has always been. And a lot of people rely on how it has always been versus taking the initiative to change it. But if you ask me how it should change, I can't speak to that because I don't have children to understand this system or what the needs are today. And I hate throwing out a problem without a potential solution, but I really don't know, nor have I focused on it enough to be fully knowledgeable enough to make an opinion.
Yeah. Good. From real life to where you were taught before, do you think that, based on what you were taught before, do you think that there could be something better in the school system?
Well, bringing religion back to the school system, because I was raised in a Catholic school, is one thing that I would say. But again, not knowing, apart from what the news tells us is part of the rhetoric, I don't know really what goes on. But my upbringing was rooted in faith, right? And in my high schools, like I said, I had nuns and I feared my nuns, right? But it was more because I didn't understand discipline back then. Now I do. So there are pros to it because children learn discipline, they learn authority, but also need to be taught how to disagree with authority respectfully and have a conversation, not a debate, but a conversation, right? And growing up, it was, we'll do this because I said so. That's why I didn't conform, because I didn't understand why you were telling me to do that. If you explained it, I may not have agreed, but I'm also not old enough at that point to know what I do or don't agree with, right? So it's just creating that opportunity to help people understand how to speak up, how to be respectful, how to have a conversation, how to question, again, respectfully, what they're being told versus just expecting them to conform would be my response to that. But again, it is not rooted in a lot of research.
Yeah, and sometimes things take time to click. Like you can be told things when you're younger and it just doesn't make sense, but then you get older, you go through life experiences, and you realize that it makes a lot of sense. You're just not in a
mindset.
mindset.
Yeah. But it's interesting because even when you're working for others, if you're working in business, how many times does a boss say, do this? You're expected to just conform and do it. Well, the person who asks why is usually has the negative review at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Why is that the case? Because that person is curious and inquisitive. They may genuinely want to know why. And you can't fault them for that. However, you have those that just want to disagree. I understand that and I recognize that, but it's finding the balance. That's why leadership development is so important, because leaders aren't trained to know how to decipher between the two and how to navigate that. You have people who are thrown into leadership and then they have someone who opposes them and they get flustered. Well, this person's opposing me. Actually, that person just asked a question, which is their right to do so. But you are not open or humble enough to receive that question. Let's navigate through that. Because at the end of the day, we respond usually through our own blinders, right? So if we feel that this person's attacking me, I'm going to respond that way. When really they're not. They're just asking a question.
It's because they think they got promoted to be a boss, not a leader. So it's two different things.
Two different things. And then when you throw manager in there too, three different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can your business run without you?
My business right now, no. No, but I'm working to get it to that point where...
Because it's only you.
It's only me.
Yeah.
But I'm working to get it to a point where I really do like the workshops and facilitation and public speaking side of it to share the knowledge that I have. I'm working to get it to a point where those are the focal points so that selfishly I can mirror travel with working and presenting and training, because that is my big goal, is to be able to speak publicly but also travel.
Is that your main goal, is to travel? Yeah. Was that a big reason why you got into business? Did you see that as a bridge to getting to your goal quicker?
I wouldn't say quicker, but I would say the freedom and flexibility that working for yourself allows was a motivator. I really wouldn't say quicker, because obviously to build a business, to get to that point where you have the financial flexibility to do that, is going to take longer than if you were building in corporate. But I didn't want the restraints of, you can only take vacation 2 weeks in this month. Great. I wanted the flexibility to be able to say, actually, I'm not going to work with that client. Actually, I'm going to travel here. Actually, I'm not going to do that, because I recognized from corporate the pros and cons, and it just wasn't something I wanted.
It wasn't
anymore.
for you.
It wasn't for me anymore. And that doesn't say that, the future, God may not have something different for me, but after my last experience, this is just not what I wanted anymore.
I think there's like no one correct or incorrect in that point, because there's people that just can't be business owners. Their life is just work for someone and just have the regular paycheck, and they can't deal with the stress of not knowing. Because like you said, the stability of having a business, you don't know what's gonna happen that day, or
but also the realization that if everyone was a business owner, there would be no employees.
Exactly.
Right.
So
exactly. And we were talking about that the other day.
Right, we're not relying on AI.
Yeah, business is definitely not for everybody.
No.
Definitely not. I mean, it's one of those things too. Like, you can say, like, it could be, but it's just so, you step into a place of, not always being stressed out, but you don't know really what the next day.
Yeah.
And
you don't
then
know what's gonna happen.
every business is different.
Right.
Because if you're like on the consulting side, you aren't restrained to, let's say, 4 walls.
Right.
But if you go into retail and it's just you need to go in and open up and close, and
You have more overhead.
Yeah.
and you're more overhead.
Yeah, you're limited physically to space. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with your business, you can travel, right?
I can travel.
Yeah.
I
That's
can-
the
what
great
you wanna
thing
do.
about those types of businesses.
Thing, and especially after COVID, now that we've become more adapted to Zoom and
Yeah.
Teams, it really was the perfect storm in both ways as to, okay, I'm going to go out on my own because the environment is allowing it. But on the same time, we're in an election year, right? So it's, does the environment allow it? Like, what are we?
This is election year?
I know, right? Yes.
This year?
I thought it was next
Yeah,
year.
2024.
For this year.
I don't know.
Just be prepared.
Oh wow. Flu.
I really didn't know.
It's by in the next
I should probably.
November, right?
November.
It's always
And we're basically April,
This
so
November?
this
Who are you
November.
voting for?
Jeez.
I need to talk about that today. We're doing so well.
Is there anything that you'd like to mention or give advice on before we go into? We have some rapid fire, just random fun questions that
Okay.
we go into. But is there anything?
Honestly, I would say for me, based on everything we talked about, my ideal for the book side, my ideal demographic for the book side, because I know we didn't touch much on that, but is women in business. And it is really, if you're ready to make that honest conversation with yourself as to where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And I mean honest, because the book gets really honest with some of those questions, and really take hold of your future, then pick up a copy of Discovering Your Inner CEO, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and on my website.
What was the driving factor for creating that book? Was that why?
It was why, because I remember getting to a point where I looked in the mirror one morning and I was burnt out, but I was also so used to helping everybody else. You would call me and say, hey, I need this. I got it. I just wanted to help people. And I looked in the mirror one day and said, who in the world are you? Because I don't know this person. And I started doing some of these activities on my own and asking these questions of myself and recognized, oh, damn, I don't know the answer. Like, this is hard. And after a while, I compiled a lot of these and said, you know what? How many women out there are like me that think they know, but they really don't? Because once you, I don't know about you ladies, but I would get people tell me, you should journal. Open a book of nothing but lines. What do I write?
Yeah.
I do, like, what do I do? And then you start writing and you say, okay, what else do I write? This is just scribbling at this point. I wanted intentional conversation with myself, and self-love will change the game. And this is not just for women, it's for men too. Like, once you can firmly say, I know who I am, I choose myself, I love myself, I will always choose myself, that is something that you become unstoppable with, because external factors and external comments won't affect you, right? And that's where in today's world, social media, everything allows for external noise to come in and cloud our judgment of ourselves and really change how we see ourselves, and we start to compare, right? And then even from kid age, and you start saying, well, I wish I was like her, I wish I was like them, but why? You're so unique on your own, and God made you the way you are for a reason. The world needs you, it doesn't need another them. And that's what prompted me to do the book, because how many women fall into that category?
People try to be somebody else when it's already hard to be yourself.
And not recognizing the person you're trying to be is probably also trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
So you're actually not trying to be them, you're trying to be the second version of who they're trying to be.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Because that's part of the culture that society has narrated for us.
You're
Because
not happy with what you have.
you're not happy with what you have, and you don't know who you are. How many times do you think you know someone because of what you see on social media? I mean, we know that social media is not real. We know that it is that person's thousandth photo that they posted that is digitally altered. We know that it's not a perfect life that they have, but yet we still believe it, right? When we see it and we start to compare. And little do we remember that person is also struggling knowing who they are. you may actually be a pretty awesome person compared to them, but you're trying to be them.
Do you think people are wired that way?
I think social media has wired us that way. I don't think we started, unless you're Generation Alpha, current generation, the young generation, we weren't born that way. I mean,
Generation Alpha?
The current from 2013 to now is Generation Alpha.
That's a new one.
That's a new one. Yeah. They haven't entered the workforce yet. Workforce
know
only goes up to Generation Z right now, which is up to 2012. But that's why I say
Generation Alpha. I want to meet this generation.
well,
I'm an alpha over here.
anybody I think would be 11 or younger is alpha.
Really?
So if you know any kids, they're
My girls.
They got a good
girls are
little
alpha.
name to them.
They kinda
Generation
are.
Alpha.
They are alphas.
But the whole mindset shift, right? And if you think about it, they're born into a generation where they've only known the iPhone.
Yeah.
Think
I
about
see.
that. For us, I don't know about you, but over the weekend, somehow the radio ended up on whatever station that was playing the best of the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
And I'm in the car jamming. I remember this song. You start singing. And then you start thinking to yourself, man, this is what radio used to be. Whatever song popped up, you just went with it. You don't have control over changing it, moving forward. But then also seeing kids run outside. And all the neighbors are responsible for keeping an eye out, right? Playing with the
it's
water
so
outside,
different.
right? And then you say, not having a phone, how many kids when they start crying, you just put a phone in front of them to distract them.
Yeah.
When we were younger, my mother would just look at me and I knew I had to shut up.
Yeah, no, this new generation. And
I've always liked to do
I
the
wanna
opposite.
I wanna see
I
what-
don't know if it's a rebellious thing or something, but for some reason, I never liked like trends or
Yeah.
if
That comes from
everybody's
trauma.
if everybody's doing it, like I don't do it. I don't know. I don't know.
But it's interesting because when you think about it and you say, all right, let's look at the workforce. Who's working right now? And you have everyone from baby boomers straight down to, actually there are some silent generations still in there, but straight down to Generation Z. Yet we're expected to communicate the same across 5 generations and expect it to just work, right? It doesn't, it can't, it's not made to work. But again, the awareness of who are we talking to and with, how do we scale that, right? How do we make it more inclusive?
Yeah, I like a mix of the old generation and the way of thinking with some, and then also with like modern and tech today.
Yeah, me too.
But not too much of either side, especially on the tech side. I think just because you can really easily go into a rabbit hole of just being on your phone every day.
Yeah,
and things are popping up that are just like it knows what you like, right? But then also some things are just so random, that pop up. So I just think that with the new generation and people that are growing up with phones in their hands all the time, if you don't look up once in a while, it's going to be kind of scary because you just become a straight consumer because people are seeing so many more ads these days than ever before.
Well, what's interesting with what you're saying is I saw this meme the other day, and if you can imagine, you have an owner walking a dog, right, with a leash. But instead of the owner, put the phone, and instead of the dog, put the human. So the phone is tethering and pulling the human. So if the phone says, in the meme, it said, the phone did Candy Crush. You're like, oh, Candy Crush, right? Then the phone goes to, oh, text this person back. Oh, you got a like. You're tethered to the phone versus in our day, our parents sometimes had to force us inside because it was sunset. We were more making connections with the people outside. Mom, I don't like this person I'm playing with. They were mean to me. How do you navigate that conversation? How do you work through your differences? Now it's, I'm going to block you. It's no longer,
so true.
yeah, it's no longer, let's work through our differences. And then as you get older,
Just block them.
just block them. Then you go into business and like, I don't like you as an employee. Well, you can't block me because HR says that's illegal. So how do we talk through? And that's one of the things I find when I come in and I work with development. It's, okay, we're unlearning a lot of what society taught us. You can't bring that into business. We still need to have communication. We still need to coexist. We still need to respect differences. But it's so easy now to just be like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, it's very interesting where things are going. All right, perfect. So we're going to go into these rapid fire questions. Joanna, you had one more question though.
She's like, I did.
I don't know.
I'm joking. Do you want to ask?
I asked all my questions.
Sure, I'll read.
All right.
Okay. What digital or software tools do you use daily to make your life easier?
Canva.
Oh, yeah.
Me too, girl. Me too.
Canva. Whoever invented Canva.
It was people in Australia.
Listen,
Amazing.
and I will
And
say
whoever's
this.
doing Photoshop, like they need to up
Adobe, Adobe tries to tell you that they're ready. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But also on top of Canva, I will say I just lost it. I feel the same way about Canva like I feel about Amazon. Jeff Bezos deserves every billion that he has. Right? So it's
What
Canva.
would we do without Amazon?
It's unfortunate because now I'm finding, okay, if you want more quality things, okay, you still have to go to the store. There is a realization that not everything is on Amazon.
They lie in the picture.
They do. See,
Not everyone.
Everything's so small.
You understand. But there is the freedom to say, especially in business, I don't have time to drive to 10 stores to get 10 different things. It will all be here tomorrow.
Exactly.
That part.
Technology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the thing
iPhone.
we just ordered.
That's like half the
TV.
things. I
When
ordered.
Joey orders things, everybody comes like this.
Especially piñatas.
Everything comes like this.
Every time I order a piñata for one of my girls' birthdays,
They get smaller and smaller.
And that's where if Party City is listening, be like, insert ad right here.
Yeah, I gave up with the piñatas and Amazon.
Yeah. The last one, she said it came bigger. It came like this.
And we measured it, remember?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
They lie. iPhone or Android?
Android. I will never.
Android.
Really?
Never.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I didn't see that
We were
coming.
just having this conversation
Really?
last night.
Yeah.
So
The green text? No.
Agreed.
okay, look, the rotten apple. No, okay, I'm.
You know where that? You know, that's the Eve apple. Adam and Eve.
I'm sorry. What?
Her face.
Yeah. How crazy is that? about that.
That's where it came from. The rotten apple.
I don't know.
I mean, that would make sense. That's why I don't like it.
But it's
Well,
interesting.
it's not rotten. It was just bit into. Eve bit it.
That's why I still don't like it.
And that's their logo.
The beginning of the end.
Isn't
That's
that
why I still
scary?
like- yeah, that's why I'm not an apple
So
person.
why?
Honestly, I find apples to be very confusing, and I know Apple users will say the same thing for Android. But one of the best things, secrets to the trade, one of the best things that I love about Android is that you can schedule text messages. So,
Oh, what?
oh, exactly.
What?
So, let's say.
So
that-
you want to text someone back work related, but you don't want to be the person that texts at 2 a.m. So you're scared
There's that. Or you meet someone and they say, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. My husband's having surgery tomorrow. How did the surgery go? Scheduled for tomorrow night. The person responds tomorrow night. Thank you so much for remembering. You're welcome.
Oh, I love that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
iPhone needs
that
to
Apple
step
doesn't
it up.
have that.
What?
I don't know if it's trademarked, but it's one of the best things that Android has.
Wow.
Wow. If you could eat only one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Guacamole.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Actually, really? One?
yeah, one.
Half guac, half queso. Okay, go ahead.
Do you prefer winter or summer?
It depends where I am. I can't. Because if you say in Florida, winter. If we're in Ohio, summer. It depends where I am.
That makes sense. What is your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? Well, I would say Christmas, partly because my birthday's 2 days later. So,
So double present?
no.
Or people don't
Actually,
give
yes.
you presents?
Yes, I thought you were going to say one person. Yes, double presents,
Double
two
presents.
different days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you prefer to relax on the beach or pool?
I hate this question because
Or neither, I guess. That's an
no, but it's actually both because it's dependent on where we are. If I'm at home in Jamaica, it's beach. If I'm here, it's pool.
You don't like the beach here?
So it's all about
With all the
location.
people?
It's the color of the beach. I like to see the
water?
floor.
The water.
The water, yeah. I like to see the floor. You know, when you see the
I
sharks
haven't
coming
seen the ocean in Jamaica.
Oh, then you need to go.
Oh, you go.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
business trip.
Yeah.
Research and development.
Fifth Ave or Mercado?
Neither?
Where would you pick then?
For what?
Just a place that you go when you Go out or have free time?
Free time is my
Place you
house.
like to be.
I like my house. Sanctuary of my house. And I don't have parking issues. I'm not screaming down the street. My house. Plus, there's not Fifth Avenue or Mercado prices. My house.
If you could only work 2 hours a week, what would you do in those 2 hours?
Help people. I don't know how that would work, but help people.
Or be with the gorillas.
That's not work.
That's fun.
That's fun.
A book you'd recommend to read?
Start with Why, Simon Sinek. Actually, and it also depends outside of discovering your inner CEO.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No, honestly, I just finished. Her name is Lydia something, but it's the most confident person in the room is you. And I just finished it, and it was well written, and it really builds on that confidence and saying, any room you walk into, be the most confident person in the room. So I would recommend that also because I just finished it, but then also everyone should start with Why.
If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dead or alive, I would say Meryl Streep.
Oh.
You didn't think I was going to go there? Where do you think I was going to go?
Oh, I had no idea. I'm always shocked with people's answers. I'm not going to lie. What is your favorite restaurant in Naples?
Man, can I just say, I hate the word favorite because it depends on my mood.
You like?
I will say one that I really like. Okay. Actually, it depends on what we're ordering.
It depends the mood.
It depends because I will tell you, I don't like Hampton Social except for their poke bowl. That is phenomenal. But then also, if we're talking guacamole and queso, I will say tacos and tequila.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Rocco's.
Rocco's. No. What about
Are we on
Uncle
camera?
Julio?
Sorry.
Julio's.
Okay, I will consider Don Julio's, but tacos and tequila queso, I call that liquid gold. You've had it, right?
I haven't been there.
No.
It's liquid gold.
All right.
That is what any plugs for tacos and tequila.
Okay. When you think of the word successful, who comes to mind?
Myself.
If you could choose any other career path, what would it be?
Honestly, it would probably be a veterinarian.
I could see that.
But except I cannot deal with terminally ill. It would have to just be the fun, fluffy side of veterinarian.
What's been your best investment?
Myself.
What's a bad piece of advice you heard people telling others?
That's a good question.
Buy an iPhone.
I'll go with that answer. iPhones are the best. No. Outside of that, I would say when people say just do it without a plan, whatever it is, you need a plan. You can't just wing it. Whatever it ends up being. That's where you call me because you need a roadmap.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
Tracy.
you.
Honestly, it was a great
Thank you,
conversation,
Tracy.
and really, listening to you and gaining, knowledge from the conversation is always great. So
Thank you.
so
I
much for your
appreciate
time
that.
today.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.